So if you haven't already been to one of these events, welcome. If you have, welcome back. My name is Sage. I currently fly the King Air 200. I created Aviator Hangout a few years ago with intentions to increase awareness of aviation opportunities, networking and mentorship, and so much more. Tonight we'll be focused on our two presentations. So first up, well, if you guys could give a warm welcome to NAV Canada.
Hello, my name is Will Dingwall. I am your friendly neighborhood Winnipeg tower controller. I've done a few of these in the past and I really enjoy doing them. Try to get some information out. The end goal is kind of to make everybody a little bit less intimidated to talk to controllers, especially low-time general aviation pilots. For some reason, they can be intimidated by us. And low-time general aviation pilots eventually do become professional pilots. So we're just trying to make that a little bit of an easier transition. We're going to talk a little bit about operating in Winnipeg Tower Airspace. We've also got a couple of West Low controllers if any IFR or en route questions come up. So you guys want to just introduce yourselves just a quick?
My name's Jason Gregoire. Yeah, I work around Winnipeg. At some point, frequencies are 18.0, 32.25, and 34.4. We're the en route guys, kind of working Brandon, Dauphin, Russell, Neepawa, kind of those small airports if you're in and out of there at all, and then obviously any other traffic into Winnipeg.
Andrew McLaren, I work with him in West Low, and I also have St. Andrews Tower experience a few years ago.
Okay, so lots of experience, lots of different information. If you have any questions, feel free to put your hand up. There will be a spot at the end as well if you want to. A bit of my background. I've been with NAV Canada since 2014. I've done the whole time in Winnipeg Tower. Before that, I was in the Air Force for 10 years. I was an air traffic controller in the Air Force. I was at Moose Jaw. I was a tower controller there, then a terminal controller there. So lots of experience working with student pilots, especially because that's where all the Air Force pilots go through Moose Jaw. So lots of high performance, but low time pilots. So I do enjoy talking to student pilots. I'm going to have to be running back and forth here because I don't have a clicker, but if you just bear with me.
You could have pointed that quicker.
All right. Not getting this to... Raquel, could I get... I'm having a problem here. I'm not able to get this through here. Sorry about that. It worked.
Advancing for you?
It worked fine earlier.
Did you put it on that?
There we go.
There.
Let's see if we
Okay,
go
so
here
then
now.
yeah, just
Perfect.
click on that.
All right, here we go. I'm gonna have to stand out here. Can everybody still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. We're gonna be talking about Class C intent. These are some things that are a little bit different to Winnipeg, but it's gonna make your experience that much more enjoyable. We're gonna go over the Class C intent circuit slot program. That's available to you if you wanna come to Winnipeg and do circuits. I highly recommend it. I have a private pilot's license now. I'm working on a commercial license. There's a big difference between the sight picture of landing on a 75-foot wide runway in St. Andrews and a 200-foot wide runway at Winnipeg. You're gonna flare too high and you're going to land really hard the first time you do it on a 200-foot wide runway. But it's something that you have to deal with. So we're gonna talk about how to do that. Our preferred check-in format, it's a little bit different in Winnipeg Tower, the way that we prefer to get it. If you do it the way you've been taught, you're not wrong, but just this way is the way we like to do it. Land and hold short operations, that got a little bit simpler in the last couple of years. Some things that we call Winnipegisms, just things that are unique to the Winnipeg airspace and operating there, and then the relationship with ATC and you, the pilots. So this is just something that I've cut out of the CFS. It's in the ATS VFR requirements. It used to actually be called the Class C intent, that's why I've just left it at that. But you call into the ACC, you'll call the ATOS, the flight planning people, and tell them that if you say, I want to file a Class C intent, they know what you're talking about. You'll tell them, I want to go into Winnipeg, I'm coming to go to St. Andrews, I want to come into Winnipeg, do a city tour, do a touch and go, anything like that. That feeds a plan into our system. So then we actually have something you don't just kind of pop up and you're going to get better service that way. Has anybody done this before? A couple of people? Yeah. And it was all pretty smooth? Like, say, they called up, you called up, they knew exactly what you wanted. You'll see that this one, it says departing St. Andrews Tower, I believe, like Lyndcrest, Gimli, it all has it in there if you want to come into the Winnipeg airspace. And the phone number here is the same for the circuit slot. You just see it at the bottom there. I don't have that again later, but you're going to see that come up in a few minutes here. So the point of it is to expedite the service, like I said. So you're going to call up, you're going to say, you check in, you're going to tell us what you want. Everything that we have is all electronic. So all the flight plans, it all used to be like handwritten strips, but now they're all electronic. We have a database. You call up, you say who you are. We can just pull that right out of the database. So you get basically instantaneous service. I just did the quick math. I pulled out the rates for HARS. If you're renting a Cessna 152 at $164 an hour, if it takes me 5 minutes to get to you, which it has in the past when people have not filed, that's $14 out of your pocket. That's not a great way to spend $14 in my opinion. There's a lot of better things you can do with that. We know that flight training is expensive, so we're just trying to make this a bit better. Better provision of the service, because they say you call up, we know exactly who you are, what you want, your type. It doesn't give us heads down time. The electronic system is great when everybody's filed in there. It's not so great when they're not filed in there. There's a lot of mouse clicking, a lot of typing to generate a flight plan for you. So we might say, stay outside the control zone until advised. Because it is Class C airspace, you need a clearance to come in. So you might just sit out there in orbit until we get that figured out. Makes your intentions known as well. Are you coming in for a city tour? Are you doing a touch and go or a low approach? Do you want to come in and do circuits? Are you coming in for a stopover? That's all going to be contained in that. It's basically like a flight plan that doesn't go anywhere. I guess that's the best way to describe it. Do it about 2 hours ahead of time. I think on the last slide it said at least 15 minutes prior. But no more than 2 hours ahead of time, or the system might delete it. It's kind of hit or miss. So if you're going tomorrow, if you want to come in and do circuits tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning, don't file it now. Do it tomorrow morning just before you come. Any questions on that one so far? No? There's no cost. There's no reason not to do it. Again, then they will generally assign you a squawk code as well. And so then you can just put that on into your transponder right on the ground, take off, and have everything be figured out. Moving on to the circuit slot program. We don't get a lot of general aviation that takes advantage of this. It tends to be more the operators like Polar Bear, Perimeter, the military that are actually operating on Winnipeg Airport that use this. Same phone number as Class C intent. You book your slot time. It goes in half-hour increments. You got to hit your slot times. So try to be accurate if you are going to use it. And sometimes, life happens, and maybe you plan on coming in doing circuits and that doesn't happen, that's fine. But if you're going to file it, please only file and sign up for the slot program if you're actually intending on using it. It is staffing dependent, given that, but what I mean by that is we have, I think, up to, Peter, is there 4 slots available? Is 3 or 4 slots?
Depending on the time of day.
Depending on the time of day and depending on staffing. So we will increase or decrease the number of slots to what the staffing is. And I don't know how often it's happened, but if we were to have sick calls or whatever reason staffing changed after that's been filed, they actually have a way to get in touch with you to tell you, hey, your slot had to get canceled for staffing. So then that way you don't, take off out of Steinbach or whatever, or St. Andrews, get all the way into Winnipeg and then be told, no, we're not available for that anymore. So, a couple of things though. It is not a flight plan. Getting the circuit slot is not the same thing as filing a flight plan, but I called them and asked them, the same people that book your slot time can file your flight plan, either IFR or VFR, so it's kind of one-stop shopping to get that all taken care of, or do the Class C. So if that's what you want to do. If you're coming in doing like one touch and go, or maybe a couple of touch and goes, not required for the slot program, but if you want to come out and do an hour of circuits, then we do ask that you file that one.
Are there landing fees for every touch and go?
I've never been charged a landing fee for touch and goes. When I've called and asked, they said that I've been told that they only charge the landing fees if you stop and go to an FBO. Your mileage may vary on that one, but no, I've never, and I've only done it in rental aircraft, but I do know people that do own their own aircraft, and they've never gotten a bill from WAA for coming in and doing circuits either. So as long as you don't actually stop on the airport. Fairly common, we do get people that come in, doing a cross country and they want to come into Winnipeg, do a city tour or something, that's fine as long as it's, we can accommodate that almost all the time. But they'll come in and then they'll just do a low approach because there is kind of that persisting, people afraid of getting a hefty landing fee. But I've never heard of anybody getting the full $59 per 1,000 kilograms or whatever it is that they charge. WAA does have a listed rate, but I've never heard anybody get charged that. We don't actually have anything to do with charging landing fees. That's an airport's thing. So that's all I can really say about landing fees. I know I've never been charged one, and I know people that haven't. But if you stop there, yes, WAA will likely charge you one. I think they have an agreement with some of the flying schools, but I can't really speak to that for sure. Good question, though. Any other questions? All right. As I mentioned before, the preferred check-in format. We don't like to get into a great big conversation with a back and forth. I know that, the way you may have been taught to check in with air traffic control is, Winnipeg Tower, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie. Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie, Winnipeg Tower, altimeter 29902. And then we get into this big back and forth. In Winnipeg Tower, we do prefer you give it to us all at once. Winnipeg Tower, Cessna 152, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie, 15 miles east, 2,000 feet, inbound for a city tour, or inbound for a touch and go, then back to Steinbach. Whatever it is, just give it to us all at once. And because you filed your Class C intent or your flight plan, we have that ready to go. So you just check in, I pull up that Class C or that flight plan, and we're all on the same page and everybody's ready to go. It cuts down a lot of chatter on the frequency. Show of hands, who's flown into Winnipeg airspace? Right, so a lot of you may or may not have heard a lot of different chatter on the frequency, like especially if you show up on a Thursday night, like a Thursday evening is a bad time to fly into Winnipeg. It's always kind of busy. Saturday afternoon, great time to come to Winnipeg. There's not a whole lot going on. So you can come in, do your city tour, do a touch and go. So the whole point of this is to try to cut down on the excess chatter, the big back and forth, for what is really a simple request. So, yes?
Is that the same for Winnipeg Terminal or just the tower?
I can't speak to Winnipeg Terminal.
Okay.
How about for you guys? What do you guys prefer?
I'd say yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, if you got a request, we're listening, we'll hear it. If we don't, we'll say again, but
Yeah.
spit it out.
Yeah. Good question. Yeah. Say if you filed everything correctly, then we've got it all ready to go, and we can just get to you right away. It's going faster than I thought it would. It's all right. I actually have to go back to the tower when I'm done here. So, LASSO, land and hold short operations. This allows us to use multiple runways at the same time. We used to be able to do it on runway 18 and 1331. We can only do it on 18 now. A couple things about it though, certain conditions have to be met. Big one is runway conditions. We can only do it on a dry runway now. So there used to be different rules for dry lassos, wet lassos. Wind tolerance. We cannot ask you to do it if we're at a wind tolerance. Stop group. There's a publication. It has the aircraft stop groups. Those are provided generally by the manufacturer, and it's an ICAO document. It has to be a stop group that's published within those limits. So on runway 18, which is the only one we do it now, you have to be stop group 4 or less. 4 is like 737s are a 4, RJs are a 4. There's very few that are 5 or 6. We're talking like 747 freighters, the Antonov, like really big airplanes are 5 and above. So most things can stop. So we have to have the stop group. It is as published. And the really important point here is this: no published stop group means you can't do one. I'm sure that, I think it was Cirrus, does not have a published stop group. They can probably stop in the 7,200 feet that I have available to stop on runway 18. Cannot ask them to do it. Cannot set that up with them to do that, because Cirrus never provided us with a stop group for them. There's a few other ones that are like that. But yeah, so those are some of our conditions. But yeah, we will make sure, if we're asking, all the conditions are met. I have published, again, like I said, runway 18 is the only one we can do it on. There's 7,279 feet, but you will hear it given as 7,200 feet. If you need the extra 29 feet, or 79 feet, it's probably not going to work. We used to have, like say, 1331 had a difference, or they had their stop groups. We could do up to, I think it's stop group 3. It's a few years ago now. But no other runways are authorized. 36 was never authorized. We cannot accept your offer to lasso on any other runway. So 13, you have 3,900 feet. 31, you have 3,700 feet to stop before, and that's by you're stopping, that's from threshold until the hold short line for runway 1836. I'm sure most people think that you could probably get a 172 stopped in 3,900 feet. If not, you're going to have issues at Harves, or up at St. Andrews, they're flying the Harves ones. So yeah, those are all available there, but even though that's plenty of room, if you say, yeah, I can land on 13 and hold short runway 18, thanks for the offer, but I can't do it. And we can't accept your offer to lasso on an approved runway. Sorry, this is a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. If all conditions, so that's wind, runway service conditions, and stop group, are not met. So even though you know, yeah, on a wet runway, I can still stop in 7,200 feet, we still can't use that for our purposes. So this is more on the commercial side. We get a lot of offers like from Perimeter or Polar Bear. We'll say, oh yeah, and I can hold short if that helps. It's like, well, it would, but the runway's got a little bit of water on it, so I can't do that. So that's some of the conditions there. This is the actual, kind of blurry here, but up here, you've got the runway length remaining. That's right out of the CFS again. I made a little mark here. That's about where the number is. So that's 7,279 feet. So it's set back 200 feet from the crossing runway. That's longer than a lot of airports' longest runways. So basically, this is what you're going to get from us. Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie. Are you able to land runway 18 and hold short of runway 31 with 7,200 feet? Wind is. So you'll be given all that information up front. We have to give you the landing distance remaining if we're offering it or asking you to do it. And we'll give you the wind. You can decide whether or not that's something you're able to do. Anything that is not a confident reply in the affirmative is as good as a no to me. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can do that. Nope. Like, anything that is not like, yeah, you bet I can. Anything other than that is no good to me. I'll be fine if you can't, but you might have a problem. Then you say, yes, I can. You're going to be given the traffic. Why are you holding short? Alpha Bravo Charlie, traffic's a Boeing 737 departing runway 31. That's why I'm asking you to stop. Otherwise, they have to wait till you're down. Wind is 250 at 10. Cleared to land runway 18. and hold short runway 31. The read back a hold short is pretty much the only part I really need. And so much so to the point that if you read it back everything else except for the hold short, I'm going to hunt you down for it. 'Cause I need you to say, I'm going to land and I'm going to hold short of runway 31. Everybody's with me so far on this? Only participate if you're 100% comfortable and you're 100% able to comply. If you're at all not comfortable doing it, or you're not totally sure that you can, just say unable. We will not ask again. We won't harass and harangue you as to, well, the last one did it. Well, bigger, faster airplanes than you have done it all day. It's not going to happen. So negative, unable. Okay, that's fine. Coming up with new plans is part of the job. You're not going to make us angry or upset or anything. You might end up eating a bit of a delay for it because we try to kind of pass out the least average delay. So you might get spun. We might pull you off final because we got a bunch of traffic to depart. But if that's what happens, that's what happens. Don't worry about upsetting us. We don't really have feelings. So any other questions here on this? This is a really kind of important part because this is a tool that allows us to accept especially smaller general aviation aircraft in. Like you might get asked, if you want to do a touch and go, we might say like, okay, for traffic it's going to be a stop and go. Can you land and hold short? Yep, okay, great. So you'll get your stop and go. You're cleared to land. I'll call the go portion, runway 18, and hold short 31, great. Then I can depart somebody, and then once they're gone, then you can go. So this really allows us to move more traffic. The answer I was given as to why we don't do it on the other runways is because 18 is the only one that we have PAPIs on. So that way you have a visual way of determining if you're able to actually get down with a lot of runway remaining. Now again though, as I say that, remember the PAPIs guide you to the PAPIs. The 7,200 feet is from the threshold, so it's not 7,200 feet from the PAPIs, it's 7,200 feet from the threshold, okay? That's your total length there. So before I go, we'll have questions at the end too, but here's some little, so I call them the Winnipeg-isms. Show of hands, who's come in for a city tour? Oh, we need to see more city tours. Come in, do tours. Tell your friends. Take your friends. One of the really common restrictions you're going to get is east of the field and north of the forks. But the important thing is, where is the forks? When we talk about the forks, we mean the place the forks. Everybody know what I'm talking about? A really good landmark is the very distinct Museum of Human Rights, right? That's right there at the forks. So east of the field, north of the forks, that keeps you off of the approach for 31 or off the departure path for 13, right? All right. I don't want to get in trouble here. Somebody thought it was a great idea to call the beacon the final approach fix for runway 31 the forks. That's not the forks that we're talking about. We're talking about the place. You are a VFR aircraft. You're staying, I'm a VFR controller, you're a VFR aircraft, you're staying north of a visual point. So that's a very common restriction that you're going to hear. But yeah, you're not staying north of the beacon, you're staying north of the place. Again, everybody you can just nod. Like people that have come in, have you gotten that restriction? Like, yeah. It keeps you out of the way of everything. And if you get that restriction, but let's say you want to go overfly the stadium, because the stadium's pretty cool, just say it. Yeah, when able, can we get down to the stadium? Okay, great. We can see the stadium from the tower. So yeah, you want to go down there? Just voice it, just tell us that that's what you actually want. Because this is kind of a blanket restriction. Most people just kind of want to go see downtown. But if there's something specific that you want to see, it's not just because I worked there, because some of the guys don't recognize my voice, but like I live kind of down here. And so I've gone down to fly over my house so that my kids could see it. And just say like, oh, hey, I want to go down, I want to fly about, maybe do a little research. I want to go about 5.5 miles south of the airport. okay, and then we'll work something out to get you down there. But yeah, just be very clear about what you want to do on your city tour. If you're happy with the north of the Forks, east of the field, just spin it over downtown. Cool. If you want something else, you want to go see the Downs, you want to go, Simboyne Downs, you want to see the stadium, let us know. See the floodway. The floodway is kind of cool to see this time of year. Hopefully it stays within the floodway. But yeah, just let us know.
At what point do you start wondering what the heck we're doing? Like, how far north, south, east, west?
Depends on what I got going on. If we're active on 31 and there's a whole bunch coming in, and you're starting to get like, you're more than a mile south and you still look like you're going south, so if you say, okay, no further south than that, there's traffic, and then we'll pass you the traffic to keep it out. To keep you, it might have slipped your mind. Again, these are all things that I didn't really appreciate till I started flying. Sometimes it's hard to tell that you might also get the restriction, stay north of the approach for 31. At 2,000 feet, and if you're far enough out, it can be kind of hard to see exactly, am I getting close to it or not? So then we'll hit you on that one. I'm going to say no further south than that. But honestly, if there wasn't anything on approach, we might point it out to you, ask you, did you want to go further south? And then, yep, okay, yeah, I want to go down all the way to the south end of the city. Sure. And there's nothing there. A lot of times the best place, believe it or not, to cross an airplane, if you want to get from one side of the airport to the other, is the best place to cross is at the airport, right? Because then we can control where the tie is happening. We're going to get to it here on the next slide, but the bug spray helicopters that everybody loves because they get rid of the mosquitoes, they cross overhead the field all day at 2,000 feet because they're not really a conflict. You cross over a threshold at 2,000 feet, well, most airplanes are pretty close to the ground at the threshold, so that's a great spot. So you might get that one as well. Yeah, all good questions. Anybody else? Good. So that kind of leads us to our next thing. Common VFR traffic that we have. So there's Air 50, Air 50, you might hear us call them, used to be Air 1. That's the police helicopter. They're at night, frequently over downtown at 2,000 feet. They are going to have different restrictions than you on your city tour because we have an agreement with Winnipeg police. So you might hear us say, like, you're clearing the area east. Well, they have it marked off, I believe, on their GPS, like what area east is. It keeps them a mile outside of the, basically take the departure path or the approach path for every runway and make it 1 mile on either side of it, like that corridor. They will stay outside of that without permission. So they get a lot closer than you will on your city tour. So don't use them as a marker. Be like, oh, well, I'm north of that guy, so that's fine. Because they might have different restrictions. But yeah, they're frequently over at 2,000 feet, maybe 2,500. They do like to be at 2,000 feet though, because they're working with the police, providing intelligence from the air for them. Medevac helicopters, you'll hear a lot of times Star 7, Life Flight 6. Sorry, you can grab a drink here. They are often going to go to the HSC helipad. Sometimes they go to Gray Street. Does everybody know where Gray Street is? It's kind of on the east side of the Red River. Basically, if you almost draw a map, actually we'll might see it here on the next slide. If you draw a line directly east from HSC, it's over on the other side of the river. I don't know why they pick one over the other. That's not really my business, but a lot of times they'll be going to HSC. If you're in the vicinity of HSC, kind of downtown, and you don't hear any helicopter traffic coming in, any medevacs, so like Star 7 or Life Flight 6, but you see the lights flashing on the helipad, somebody's coming in. Like they turn those on before someone comes in. So that's a clue to you that you might get bumped to a different altitude or told to stay away from HSC. And generally what we'll do is if they're coming from the west, we'll say, okay, we'll stay east of HSC, Star 7's coming in. So that we'll give a restriction to keep you away from there, keep you out of their way. Life Flight 6, I think they operate out of Kenora, so they're almost always coming from the east. And then bug spray helicopters. Has everybody seen MASH? the old Army show. This is what one of our bug spray helicopters, can't make out the ident there now, but there's anywhere between 4 and 6 of them, typically 4 or 5 of them flying at any given time. They're going to be flying a lot this summer, I bet, because they didn't fly a whole lot last year because it was really dry. They go, they have their booms, they drop larvicide into like standing, any kind of standing body of water. They go out of Gray Street. They have other load sites that they sometimes use. We wish that they would use them more, but basically it would stop them from having to cross over the airfield. But they go to and from Gray Street all day long, so you're going to hear them a lot. They either go at 1,800 feet, but if they go 1,800 feet, they'll follow like train tracks, because then there's no obstructions for them. Or they'll be going at 2,000 feet, because then they can go direct to places. Again, they're just coming in and out of Gray Street all day. Technically or legally, I guess they don't get any priority, but like, if we don't give it to them, they're just going to keep asking for it. So they have work to do. So we're trying to get them to and from their sites. They can't fly when it's really windy, so they're often flying like right after sunrise or right before sunset, because they're also daytime VFR only, as far as I've been told. So that's some of our common ones there as well. So you might hear us say like, watch for a bug spray helicopter. This is what you're looking for. He's going to be real hard to see, especially in ground clutter, because he's white, little like, wire frame kind of a helicopter. They're small, they're slow, but yeah, you might hear us talking to them, or you might get past like, you're going to be crossing over, you'll be passing over top of one of the bug spray helicopters. They'll be working treetop level, and they really work down at like treetop level. But it can be kind of unnerving seeing something pop up. Some of our, too much talking, not enough clicking. Now for one of my favorite parts. Gray Street is right there. So there's HSC, Gray Street, pretty much directly across the river from there. We call it the shelf. So if I'm going to describe Winnipeg Tower Airspace to you, this inner ring is 7 miles from the surface up to but not including 3,000 feet, centered on the airport. And you see this cutout, or this tower radar area, or control zone extension, that's from 2,000 feet up to but not including 3,000 feet. But that actually extends out, centered on the Winnipeg VOR, 13 miles, which means at 2,500 feet, when you're coming back from Brandon and going to St. Andrews, and you're going here at 2,500 feet, you're in my airspace the whole time. And you haven't called. That happens a lot. Former St. Andrews Tower controller. A lot of times what will happen is we'll hit the hotline and say, yeah, you talking to so-and-so? Yeah. Okay, well, can you tell him he's been in my airspace for the last 15 miles? Okay, great. The problem might be, we might be having aircraft come through on approach for 18 or 13, and we have other, it's called the descent zone, that we keep aircraft out of for terminal. Not West Low terminal, but like Winnipeg approach, like arrival terminal, that they can bring aircraft down in. So they might bring a they won't because they see you, but they might bring a 737 right down on approach. It's going to be a bad time. So yeah, that's an area that we sometimes have issues with. This is all, like I said, this is out of the CFS. You will see this marked on VNC, maybe the VC, at least the VTA for sure. But that's the difference there. And then of course we've got these cutouts. This next slide is pretty much just the description of it. The shelf, again, 2,000 up to but not including 3,000. You got a call to go through it. And if you call, you'll probably get cleared through it. Like, it's okay to call us and ask for that. Or we might say, come direct to the airport. Because again, like I said, the easiest place to break a tie is at the airport. So,
is that shelf considered Class C?
Yes, it is. It's Class C airspace. You do require a clearance to get into that airspace. It's technically, I guess it's given to us from terminal, but yeah, it is Class C airspace. You need clearance to come into it. You will probably get clearance of some sort to come into it. I've never told anybody, no, you can't. I've been there since 2014. It hasn't come up yet that I've said, no, you can't come into the airspace. You might not be able to go direct. You might have to go, like say, overhead the airport. Still might be quicker for you. Again, here we go. Can you go below the shelf at 1,900 feet? Absolutely. That is 100% legal. Is it a good idea? No. If let's say we have military Dash 8s or C-130s, they come back VFR. Those are medium aircraft. Those are good-sized aircraft. I know from personal experience, I was in the 172 behind a Caravan once, 2 light aircraft, and I felt the thump. A C-130 can go overhead you. You're at 1,900, they're at 2,000. They can go over top of you. No one's broken any rules. It's not a great idea. So, again, call. Maybe you don't want to come up to 2,500 feet and go through the airspace, but at least you can get traffic. You don't have to be in our airspace to get traffic, okay? We can give you traffic information, tell you things that you need to know. So you check in, we can radar identify you, we'll give you the latest altimeter, get traffic info. So please call. If you're going to be in the vicinity of Winnipeg, if you're not talking to St. Andrews, there are sometimes, you'll actually be cutting through Winnipeg Tower airspace, but if you're talking to St. Andrews, they might do what's called a point out. So instead of actually giving you to Winnipeg Tower, or we might do it the other way as well, they'll just tell us about you and say, okay, so-and-so wants to transit at 2,500 feet. Okay, point out's approved. You'll just keep talking to St. Andrews the whole time, even though you're going through Winnipeg Tower's airspace. If you're talking to a controller, let the controller worry about whose airspace you're in, right? You wouldn't switch off frequency by yourself until you're told to, because you've entered the next one, because the next agency might not need to talk to you. But again, you don't have to be in our airspace to be talking to us. Check in, get the traffic info. It costs you $0. You might get a quicker routing, and you will definitely get some information. You might even get information that is, yeah, there's no traffic. Proceed on course and contact St. Andrews Tower now. Like, I might have nothing for you, but that's valuable information as well, right? Like, now you know that I have nothing. Keep in mind, it's based on known traffic. So somebody out there in a fabric-covered ultralight without a transponder, I got no idea that they're out there. So don't take that as gospel, but I can give you all the information that I have. Any questions on the shelf? Class C, call to come in. All right. Last one here. ATC and U. Written down in all kinds of our publications. Safe, orderly, and expeditious control of air traffic and provision of air traffic services, in that order. At the very least, we got to be safe, orderly, so it's not mass confusion, and then expeditious, like, no undue delays. But if we have to delay you to keep things safe, we're going to delay you to keep things safe. The relationship is that we're service providers, so use us. You pay that annual VFR fee or whatever. If you're renting, then whoever you're renting from, they pay it. If you're an owner, then you pay it. Make use of that service. Call us, talk to us. You don't get charged a check-in fee or anything. I can't speak to the IFR billing. I don't know if you guys know anything about that.
We don't personally do it.
We have no idea how it works. On your airline ticket it says like nav can fee. I have no idea what that is. It doesn't go to me. And last point here is we're there to help. Like, absolutely at the end of the day, like, we're there to, again, make things safe for you, help you any way we can. If it's an altimeter check, if it's weather, you want to know something about the weather, we can do all that for you. We're not also trying to fly an airplane at the same time. Like, there's a lot of great resources out there. ForeFlight's awesome. Maybe you're a little Garmin that you have in there. Maybe somebody's got a G1000. Like, that's all kinds of great information on there, but you're also flying an airplane. I'm not. I'm sitting in a chair, and I've got probably a lot of the information. Some things we don't have is like lightning strikes. Anybody flying anything that has a weather radar, you've got better weather radar than I do. But yeah, anything like that, we can find out for you. We even have access to METARs for pretty much all of North America. So if you want to know what the weather, you're flying up to Thompson, you want to know what the weather's like in Thompson? I just have a couple of mouse clicks and I can read you the latest METAR. So use us for that kind of stuff. Next one, kind of not more importantly, ATC is not the police of the sky. That seems to be the basis of where a lot of intimidation comes from for the pilot side being afraid to talk to controllers. We are definitely not looking for ways to write up pilots and put in cadors and like, Peter? If I can avoid paperwork, I probably will.
Which is fine with me because I have to approve that paperwork.
So you got to do
it's
it.
fine.
Yeah. There are certain things we have absolutely no choice on it. You're told to hold short and you blow that hold short and you cross onto an active runway. I absolutely 100% cannot sweep that one under the rug. I have to do something about that. I have to put in that report. And I have no idea what happens to it after. Like, I have no idea what transport does with it. I have no input on that process, and I don't want to have any input on that process if I'm being totally honest with you. Certain things where, okay, it's a student pilot that's they're going from Brandon or Portage or whatever, they go through the airspace, St. Andrews, Winnipeg, yeah, you talking to them? Yep. Okay, just educate them that they came through. That's all. If it becomes an issue, then we would go and like we'd talk to the school. Hey, we've had a lot of people that have just been busting through the airspace at 2,500 feet not talking to us. Can you put out a notice, hey, if you're doing this, you need to talk to somebody. Again, we just put in the paperwork, but you absolutely positively have to, and there's no way around it, and have no input whatsoever to any disciplinary action that Transport Canada takes. I said, I have no idea what happens. We just fire and forget it. Like, we put in the paperwork. Every day, Derek sends out the email with all the AORs of the last couple of days, but we never have anything to do with that. Again, if we can avoid it, I will.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
Because one thing we need to remember about, when we talk about filing cadors or we call it an aviation occurrence report, a lot of good things can actually come out of it. It's not always a disciplinary situation that's going to arise. Everybody who's flying, whether you're flying at a school, you're flying for a company, they have a safety management system that's mandated by transport in place. And part of your SMS is reporting and exchanging of information. So, for example, like Will says, somebody's out there, they blow a hold short, cross the line. They're going to file an SMS report on that, AOR, cadors, sort of thing. Depending on who's flying, what company, they're going to recognize their error. They're probably going to have to file an SMS report with the company that they're flying with. Am I correct?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And so what's going to happen with that, in some instances, is the safety officer from the airline is going to contact us in ATC and talk to our safety coordinator. They're going to look at all of the information and they're going to go, okay, what happened? Does somebody need a refresher? Did we make a mistake? Like, what exactly has happened here? And it's just like Will says, we're going to collect all that data. We might see a trend where it's like all of a sudden, oh my God, everyone's blowing this whole short here. Why? What's the problem? Has the paint worn off the runway? Are the lights not working? That sort of thing. So it's not, like Will says, yeah, we're not the police of the sky, but everybody has a duty to report safety-related issues, and that's where this all comes from. So it's not all bad stuff that comes out of it.
And you want a safety report to do this. If we have to put something in because you blew the hold short, you also want to report it so that it meets at transport. this is more for the commercial operators. Like, I'm not gonna name any because I don't wanna, there's none that are more prevalent, but if if they don't report to their company, yeah, I blew the hold short on 31 today. And then my report says so-and-so blew the hold short on 31. That goes up to transport. Transport's gonna say, well, where's this report? They didn't report that they did that. And so then that's gonna be an issue on that side. So always report. Like I say, I'll just run back here a while actually. Like, I think the hold short at Charlie used to be, which is down here on 31. I think, did that used to be a hotspot, do you know? Sometimes on these diagrams, you'll see things marked off as being a hotspot, because like, this hold short line is on Charlie here, but the kink, we'll call it, in the taxiway is past the hold short line. So you have to hold short even though you're kind of facing this way and the runway is like this. You're not 90 degrees to it yet. That was one where people will sometimes blow the hold short there because you're just so used to that. Like a hold short line is like a 90-degree angle to the runway, but here it's not. And so if we had a lot of people that were blowing that, we need to know that. And maybe mark it better or however it works there. Yeah. So, getting close to the end of my time here. I've covered the things I want to cover. Good questions asked, all there. But now for anybody here, we've got a few options, VFR World, IFR World. Anybody have any questions on things that I haven't covered? Yes?
So it's mostly for the center controllers. Where are they located all? Like, are you guys located in Winnipeg and you just control like the northern airspace, or are you guys located based out everywhere?
Yeah, so Winnipeg Center is located right at Moray and Saskatchewan. It's just a building, you wouldn't even know it's an air traffic control building if you didn't see a little NAV Canada sign in front of it. We are responsible for Western Ontario, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan airspace. So it's a big chunk of airspace that we're controlling from there. There's around 150 controllers there right now. But yeah, do you have any specific questions about the center or where we're located?
Just also like, do you guys have like satellites that go there, or is it like?
We're working on some satellite technology. The ADSB, that's coming, or I guess the mandate is coming at the start of 2023 if you're flying Class B or Class A airspace. But no, it's right now we're all using ground-based systems. So we get feeds from the states all over Canada, and it's all put into one system and then distributed onto our monitors, and that's how we see all your targets.
Anybody else?
I'll touch on, I think it was your question there about cold calling with the center versus the tower. If you're being handed off from another sector or tower, we're definitely expecting your call. But if you're flying from an uncontrolled airport, you're trying to get into terminal airspace or talking to us in West Low here, we can see hundreds of targets sometimes. So trying to figure out which one is you. If you're already talking to an ATC and you're going to another one, from St. Andrews to Winnipeg Terminal, definitely give them all the information, give them your request. But if you're just coming off of Lac du Bonny and you want to get to Winnipeg, they probably have no idea who you are. So that first call with just your call sign, and then I think they get more information out of you at that point.
The location helps.
Yeah.
Alpha Bravo Charlie coming off Lac du Bonny, then we know at least where to look on our map.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we
for
see
sure.
you, we'll ask you to squawk a dent. If we don't see any targets in the area, we'll ask you an altitude, and then kind of wait until we see a splat and a marker on the screen, and then we'll get you identified and going wherever you want to go.
Yeah. Location's pretty important.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I tell people, who are you? Where are you? What do you want? Those are the three pieces of information. And that gives us a lot to work with.
Yeah.
How do you need to be that far out to get a transponder signal?
It's based off of line of sight. So the rule of thumb is 1,000 feet per 10 miles away from the radar source. It's a very loose rule. So if you're 50 miles away from Winnipeg, Winnipeg's a radar source. If you're at 5,000 feet or above, we should be able to see you. In reality, it might be closer to about 3,000 feet we would see you, 3,500 feet. But 1,000 feet for every 10 miles is a really good rule of thumb. We also have radars at Thunder Bay, Langruth, so it's kind of just outside Winnipeg, so lots of stuff around Brandon, Dauphin we can pick up relatively low. And Regina, Saskatoon, Thompson, maybe? Yeah, Thompson radar. So that's sort of the Winnipeg area that we get radar feeds off of. Good. That's a good question. Really good. There's lots of guys that are confused why we don't see them. Double check the transponders on too. I can't tell you how many guys at 7,500 feet are telling me, yeah, they're here, and yeah, their transponders on, and you tell them to squawk, you can't figure out where the heck they are, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, second transponder, sometimes they're working with that one instead. Double check the transponder.
Yeah, recycled it.
Yeah,
We
recycle it.
recycled
exactly.
it.
Yeah,
Hey, you
got
did.
it.
You turned it on. It's fine. Done it. Yeah, it's man.
You said you worked with 18.0 and 32.82, right? Is that correct?
I don't work 3282. We hand off to 3282, but we do work 18.0, 34.4, 32.25. You got a specific question about going north?
Just how big is your airspace? Technically, it doesn't really say on the map, does it?
It's Winnipeg Airspace, I believe, is the second largest airspace in the country. In Westlow, we go all the way up to about Barons River, and then after that's the North controller beyond that, but they control all over the Hudson Bay, Churchill, so they go relatively far north. Anything else about the northern tracks? We have lots of traffic from, I know a lot of people move up to Perimeter and Calm Air, and if you have any questions about that northern tracks, we deal with that every day all the time, so.
Or VFR flight following, whatever you name it, like, we're
Yeah.
happy to accommodate. Again, call us with traffic information, especially Deepwater, Brandon, there's military airspace and guys in another all the time. Like I said, we're there to provide you guys a service, and 99% of us actually believe that, and call us for information.
If you do get a cranky controller, I apologize. There's also just some guys that just sound cranky all the time. And I was flying, when I was doing my PPL, and my instructor said, oh, this guy's always cranky. No, it's just him. You give him a box of donuts and a coffee. Thanks. It's like, he means it, but yeah, it's not always the case, but or bored. And in that case, they're happy to talk to you,
Yeah.
giving them something to do. But yeah, please feel free to come in, do the city tours, do the touch and goes at Winnipeg Towers. All I can really speak is for us. Come get that experience at an international. See what it's like to follow a 737. And you'll learn more. The more you do, the more you'll learn. The more comfortable you get with everything. You'll probably see me up at Harv's a lot over the next year or so. So if you see me, flag me down if you got a question or any concerns. Then concerns, tell Peter. Concerns and complaints, those are his department. Questions, I'll take them.
Will you be at St. Andrews or stand up?
St. Andrews.
Also, I have a question.
Yep.
So when you're flying and you turn right 20 degrees, does it mean you turn to 20 degrees heading or you turn like 20 degrees?
If you're told fly heading 020, you would fly heading 020. If you're told turn right 20 degrees, whatever you have now, turn 20 degrees to the right.
Yeah, so we have very specific phraseology, right? Turn right 20 degrees, turn right to heading 020. Those would mean two different things. But turn right 20 degrees, just if you're at 060, you go to 180.
That's a great question though, because
Yeah, that's awesome.
what if you're told you're at 7,000 feet and you're told descend 5,000 feet? Do you mean descend to 5,000 feet or take 5,000 feet away from 7? Those are two very different altitudes. If there's ever any kind of ambiguity, ask.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Always ask if you're unsure of anything, clarity, because we don't want you guessing either. Because if you accept something, we're assuming you're going to do it. So if you have any confusion or you need clarity, keep asking the question until we answer it in a way that you understand. Like we'll do the same thing to you. There's lots of times pilots ask for these requests and I have no idea what that means. So I just ask them, what are you actually going to be doing when you're doing that exercise? And then we can all be on the same page. That's what it's all about, is communication, right? So.
It's, yeah, if there's any kind of doubt ever.
If we ask you to slow down, you can't slow down anymore, just say unable. Unable is an absolute, you talked about it earlier, say unable, we'll come up with a different plan. It's, don't try to do something that's unsafe because a controller tried to tell you to do something, or there's clouds over there, I can't go there. Just tell us, we'll come up with something different.
Yeah, we'll come up, yeah.
So do you have any program where students can come to the tower and see everything that goes around?
Not right now. We used to do tours before COVID. Got an email about a month ago that said hopefully in the near future is a nebulous concept that we don't all understand right now, but in the near future, hopefully that can resume, because I feel like there is a lot of value there. Are you a student pilot right now? Talk to your instructor. Are you flying out of Steinbach?
Yeah.
So yeah, if you talk to your instructor, they can talk to head instructors or whatever, and then they'd be the place to get that set up with, because the ideal situation would be like small groups, not just individuals coming up, and small groups are easier to accommodate than large groups, obviously, and then that way if we're taking somebody like, okay, well, we're going to take them for an hour and do a tour, that's more worth everybody's time if they can do a few at a time. But yes, talk to your instructor. When that resumes, that'll be an option.
I'll do that, thank you.
Perfect. Look forward to seeing you there.
Same here.
Kind of another question, just for clarification, with restricted airspace. If I'm flying VFR in controlled airspace, and I need a given heading, say direct to the airport, I'm not going to fly through the restricted airspace. Is it still my possibility to avoid it, or is it if I'm given, say, being vector
If you're vectored through restricted airspace, somebody made a mistake and it's not you.
Or if it's like I know them, then you could say, if it's active by know them, then I assume that if I'm being vectored through it, that I can basically proceed.
Never assume.
Yeah.
Never assume.
Always ask. So we
Confirm
make
this.
mistakes too, right?
Yeah.
And it's you guys in the cockpit. So if there's blasting going on around Russell or something, and we didn't remember a NOTAM or something, and you see it, let us know. We'll probably spark something. For the most part, if we're vectoring you, we do know what's active and what's not. When you're VFR though, advisory airspace are different than restricted airspaces, right? So there's lots of CYAs all around the Class C airspace for training mostly. And we don't actually have a requirement to vector you clear of advisory airspaces when you're VFR. Most controllers will be telling you about it and allow you to decide if you want to fly through it or if you want to vector around it. But for a VFR aircraft, we don't actually have, we don't have that requirement to keep you clear of those airspaces.
Good
Yeah.
question.
Do you guys see it on your screen, those airspaces?
We do, and even the temporary ones. So if something goes active because of the floodway or yeah, or you know the convoy stuff, we had restricted airspaces for the convoy, and our technicians are amazing, and they'll come put that stuff on our screen immediately as soon as it's put up. So we'll be able to keep you clear of anything that we know of for sure. These are great questions. Keep them coming. If you think of anything, this is a great time to ask your controller about a situation, or if you have any questions whatsoever, please ask.
These guys are going to be sticking around for a little bit. Yeah. I apologize. So I said, flag me down at St. Andrews if you see me. I have to get back to the tower.
He was Lieutenant.
So.